Alright, and on to question number 21. And it says, for all positive integers x, y, and z, which of the following expressions is equivalent to x divided by y? So it gives us x divided by y, and the choices are, I'll draw out the choices because it'll be easier to see what I'm talking about. Choice A is x times z over y times z. Choice B is x times x times x over y times y. Choice C is y times x over x times y over x times y. Choice D is x minus z over y minus z. And choice E is x plus z over y plus z. And the problem says that all these variables are positive numbers, so we know none of these can be 0, which would make the whole fraction undefined. So we can continue now. So we basically can just use like basic rules of algebraic manipulation here to solve this. So we'll examine each choice one by one, see which one we get. X times z over y times z. Well, in this, since the z are the same number, like we can just pick numbers if we wanted to. We could say x is 1, y is 2, and z is 3. And in this case, we'd have 1 times 3 over 2 times 3, which is the same thing as 1 over 2, so the z's would cancel out, and we would be left with x over y, which is the answer choice, but we'll go through all of these just so you can see what's going on. X times x over y times y is equivalent to x squared over y squared. So we can see that this isn't the same as that. X times y over x, or y times x over x times y, well, the y's would cancel out here, and the x's would cancel out here, so we'd be just left with 1. And this one, we can't do anything to simplify this because we're not multiplying anything, we're just subtracting. And so this would be the simplified version. And same thing with this one, we're not multiplying, we're just adding. So this would be the simplified version. So we can see that choice A is the correct answer because the z's would cancel out, leaving us with just x over y. And we'll go on to question number 22. And it says, what is the slope-intercept form of 8x minus y minus 6 equals 0? So it gives us 8x minus y minus 6 equals 0. So we divide this off. Okay, so the problem wants us to put it in standard slope-intercept form. And you sort of need to know what that is to answer this question. And all slope-intercept form is the equation y, or when you have any like set of terms in this equation in the form of y equals mx plus b, where m and b are just both numbers. And m is the slope and b is the y-intercept. So m is the slope, x and y are both just variables here, and b is the y-intercept. Okay, so you can see that this equation, the first equation we're given here, is almost in that form because we have the x variable and the y variable and then two other numbers that we just need to manipulate this equation to get it to look like this bottom one here. So if we just add y to both sides, I'll rewrite it over here, x minus y minus 6 equals 0. If we just add y to both sides, then we'll get 8x minus 6 equals y. And as you can see, this matches up with this equation right here. We have our y, we have some number, which is our slope, next to the variable x, and then we have some number, which is our y-intercept all alone. So the answer is just 8x minus 6 equals y, and that's the slope-intercept form. And we'll do another question here, but I'll clear up some space. Okay, on to question number 23. And it says, which of the following is a solution to the equation x squared minus 36x equals 0? So it wants us to solve this equation for the variable x. And there are two ways we can do that. It's a 36. There are actually multiple ways you can do this. One, you could throw it into the quadratic equation, but you don't really want to do that on this test because you only have a limited amount of time, and that takes a while to do that. If you have a graphing calculator, you could just type this equation into your graphing calculator and see where it crosses the x-axis, and that would give you these x values. Or you can just factor, which was a good practice tool for these practice tests at least, just to get the intuition behind these questions. So if you wanted to, you could factor out an x, and you'd be left with x times the quantity x minus 36 equals 0. And now we can solve this equation using the zero product property, which basically means that the only way this equation will equal 0 is if this value right here is equal to 0, or this value right here is equal to 0. So we can see the only time this value is equal to 0 is when x equals 0. And then the only time x minus 36 is equal to 0 is when x equals 36. And the only value, so x could really be any one of these two values, but the answer choice only gives us the option of picking 36 and not 0. So 36 is the answer. And if you were to throw this in your grapher, you'd get a graph that would look like this, where you'd have a upward opening parabola that crosses the x-axis at 0, and then it goes down and comes back up, and crosses it somewhere at, or crosses it exactly at 36. And this would be 0. And you could really solve it any one of the ways, but normally either this graph or factoring is the fastest way. And I'll see you in the next video.